I had just arrived in Colombia, in Bogota, preparing for the recovery of my aircraft. And I spent the first night, and then the next day, the Colombian Air Force flew me out to this remote area where the aircraft was taken by the bandits. I was sitting in this aircraft, and I was with mixed emotions for this journey. I arrived about 200 miles east of Bogota, and the entire Colombian Air Force was in support. I then joined a Black Hawk helicopter that took me to the location where the aircraft was found. On the way there, I was using my GPS to try and locate where I was. It was probably another 20 minutes when I got overhead the aircraft, and it was a fascinating sight to look at my aircraft that had disappeared, and economic salvation to my own little company. But I got there, and I saw where the bandits had hidden the aircraft in the jungle. All around us were very heavily armed Colombian soldiers. The pilots were very good, in fact, and there was a brotherhood in the military, regardless of which part of the world you were from. And I felt that brotherhood when I went there in Colombia. But we were in guerrilla country, and so they were taking no chances. So we started the afternoon and looked at it, and then the next day we actually went back to try to recover the aircraft from that area which it was taken to. There was no airstrip, so they pushed the aircraft into this jungle and they covered it with leaves. Colombian Air Force spotted it and called us. So when we got there, now it was a matter of checking this aircraft out, making sure that it was safe to fly. So we went through a physical examination of the aircraft as much as we could have, and I was checking for wrinkles under the wings. We were checking the general integrity of the aircraft. We knew this was going to be a risky venture. First of all, we were in a very dangerous area, so the Colombian Air Forces and Army was keeping watch over the entire operation, while for the couple hours that we were on the ground there, we had to then take the aircraft out of this enclave which it was, where it was placed, and take it out into the open savannas where we worked in it. Luckily the weather was good that day, but throughout that day there was almost a battalion of men deployed around this site, protecting us as we attempted the recovery and checked the fuel and the flight controls and so on. And they were all looking on with a lot of curiosity and helping as well. I was actually getting my GPS out and setting it up on the aircraft to get the coordinates of where we were, and I was spending a lot of time consulting with my colleague Miles Williams so that we could plan the strategy of how we're going to get this aircraft first of all started. It had a dead battery, and then more particularly how are we going to, when we finished all of that, how are we going to extract this aircraft from an area that had no airstrip. We did as much as we could do, and then it was time to go to lunch, and that was an interesting encounter with our colleagues in the Colombian Army and Air Force. We were sitting out in the jungle camp with them and just having light banter, but at all times they were alert. It was good to sit with the Colombian helicopter pilots, and it was amazing how great the food tasted. we were sitting and we were having light conversation. I was very grateful to them, first of all for having found my plane, and then the courtesies that they extend, bringing us out here and being with us throughout the exercise of the recovery of the aircraft, because this is an area that is infested with the rebels and the guerrillas from Colombia, and they attack the Colombian Army and Air Force quite often. But we felt safe. um, and at home with the military, having spent so long in the military myself. Soon it was time to start thinking, getting down to the real business of moving that aircraft out. But every now and again had we were alert and we were looking out at the jungle, making sure our security was intact and so on. We had the Black Hawk helicopter and the island out there. Well, the battery was dead, so what I decided to do was to use this old jungle technique in starting the engine. That is, we put a rope on it and make it like a top so that we could get the engine started. So we were making a human starter. I had to discuss here with Miles how do I find a location to take off. So he had to walk on the ground. We had to locate the proper place on the ground for us to take the aircraft, and then it was time for me to try to start the engine. And this was it. And I tried, and the first go was fired, and everybody was elated. It was a very happy moment for everybody in the ground that we got this engine started. The aircraft was actually sitting there for 2 months, and then it was time to buckle the aircraft up, close up all the panels, and then, much to my disappointment, I thought that maybe I would have been able to fly my aircraft back to Guyana. But that was wishful thinking. I had to take the aircraft back to the Colombian Air Force Base, which we had landed in the first instance. And so it was time for me to line this aircraft up on this rugged savanna country, land without an airstrip, and do the shortest takeoff I've ever done. And get that aircraft airborne. I had the coordinates back to the Air Force Base, and as I took off I was thinking, if I just turn right and ran back over Venezuela, because I'd be close to the Venezuelan border, I would have been back in Guyana in 3.5 hours. But the Colombian Air Force at all times, they wanted me to take the aircraft back to the Air Force Base, and so they tracked me at all times back to that area. So I guess if I did anything stupid, I would have suffered the consequences. And anyway, Miles had to go back with the Colombian Black Hawk helicopter while I was in the aircraft, and then we were flying ourselves way back to that Air Force Base. I got there, and they tracked that aircraft all the way. I did not realize until Miles showed me a video of, even when I was landing the aircraft, they were right there all times, right behind me, tracking that aircraft right onto its landing, and their guns at all times were trained not on the aircraft directly, but they were always at the ready. I guess if I had attempted to do anything foolish. But I was flying the aircraft, and as I was landing back at this base, I was thinking maybe I'll land here, I'll spend a day or two, get paperwork out, and then I'll be able to take my plane back to Guyana. And so I got there, and it was because this is a place that they have a lot of large military planes landing. This was probably one of the smallest planes that landed at this runway in this savanna country. Anyway, I got myself back in there, and it was a heavily armed, protected Air Force base. But I got back there, and I was meeting all the officials, and I'm thinking, wow, I'm going to get back my plane, and then they told me no, and I had to travel back to Bogota. They brought in a regular Hercules, and on my way back I was sitting and contemplating my future. It took me 2 months to get back to Colombia, but I did go back eventually, and I found my plane on the guard, and they had given me permission to release the aircraft. And I got there, and I prepared the aircraft for departure, and all the Colombian top brass was there to meet me, and it really felt I felt a lot of relief that I was going to get my aircraft back eventually, and they were all congratulating me and so on. When I started the aircraft that day for the flight back to Guyana, which was going to be over a lot of high mountains, and it was a long journey back. It took me 13 hours to get back to Guyana. But taxiing away from that Common Air Force Base and taking off, I felt a huge sense of relief. And as I went, then I remember stopping in Venezuela